We're going to talk all about what Adam Schefter had to say about the Browns quarterback battle and plan altogether. But quick scheduling announcement. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, it will be my final live Browns report. So feel free to tune in, stop on by. If you never tuned in for a live show before, this would be a great first live show to come hang out with us. So with that, let's talk all about the Browns quarterback situation as Adam Schefter was on ESPN today discussing it. And he gave some pretty interesting, thoughts and quotes altogether with Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders, the four healthy quarterbacks battling for the starting job. And then there's Deshaun Watson, who put out a video of him, throwing the ball around, and according to Mary Kay, was at the facility passing to Jerry Jeudy and David Bell without a boot on his foot after getting a second surgery on that Achilles all the way back in January. So let's just, for today at least, put Watson to the side, because a healthy Watson makes this 20% more complicated because we go from 4 quarterbacks to 5 quarterbacks. So for today's purposes, let's just assume Watson is out of the picture as he's coming back from that Achilles injury, the second injury of the same Achilles from January. So with that, here's what Schefter had to say about the 4 healthy quarterbacks on the roster. It's hard to imagine that all 4 will make it. Although they could carry 4 quarterbacks, it's a lot. Most teams don't do that. So you have to figure that they are going to carry 3, and you have to figure there is going to be one odd man out. I'm in agreement with Schefter that I don't think all 4 quarterbacks will make the initial 53-man roster. Now, the key word there is initial. We often see some roster manipulation done during roster cutdown day. Well, they'll release a veteran and then the next day place someone on injured reserve to open up a roster spot, and then they bring that veteran back. So you could see something like that happen with Cleveland. Or they release a veteran, put him on the practice squad, and then use the 3 free elevations to bring him up on game day. That's exactly what Cleveland did with Joe Flacco for his first 3 weeks on the team before giving him a permanent roster spot, because you still got him on the field, but you didn't have to use one of your 53 roster spots on him. But so for the time being, I still maintain the theory, or not the theory, I still maintain the belief that 3 quarterbacks are going to be on that initial 53-man roster. And I believe both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders will make the initial 53-man. As long as they show up and just look okay, as a rookie, you're not going to get cut. If they start blowing off practice, which is not the character of Shedeur or Gabriel, that's a different thing, right? But that seems a bit extreme. So that brings us to 2 veterans, Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Now, if the Browns release Joe Flacco, he does not go to the waiver wire. He just becomes a free agent immediately. So he could be a good pawn to use in a roster manipulation standpoint where you tell him, hey, we're going to cut you today. Don't go anywhere. We're going to bring you back tomorrow. We're going to put you on the practice squad so you don't use one of the 53-man roster spots. And then we're going to elevate you your first 3 weeks and have you start. And if someone gets injured, you can take their roster spot. That's like one possibility. If they release Kenny Pickett, he has not accrued 4 or more seasons, so he would actually be subject to the waiver wire. And I could see a team claiming him off the waiver wire. When you do that, you claim their contract as well. He's in the final year of his 4-year rookie deal, so maybe a team decides we don't want to take on that rookie contract and we want to sign him to a 1-year vet minimum deal, so he clears waivers. And at that point, the Browns' gamble could have paid off and they bring him back to their practice squad. But one of these 2 is, I don't want to say definitely not going to be on the 53-man roster. Because it's very unusual for teams to take 4 quarterbacks. That could be the solution here to this problem of you've got 3 guys for 4 spots. Why not just take all 4? But if they do go the much more traditional route of max 3 quarterbacks, 2 rookies, and then one of those 2 veterans. So, as for what happens to the loser and the winner, here's what Schefter said. My guess will be that Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett will sort of be vying for that roster spot. I think the winner starts the season and the loser maybe winds up on a team that needs a quarterback and they wind up trading one of those guys. I agree with Schefter that the winner of this veteran battle is going to start week 1. There is just one teeny tiny exception, which we'll look at in a second. But Kenny Pickett, who started a handful of games, handful is not even a good amount of word, a bunch of games. A bunch is a bunch more than a handful. Bunch is more than a handful. He started a bunch of games for the Steelers from 2022 to 2023. You can look at what he was able to do in those 2 years, which is not very inspiring. But if you can recapture that first round, believe talent in him and have him play for the Browns and beat the Steelers twice, well, that's, a Hannah Montana movie right there in the making, best of both worlds. And then you've got Joe Flacco coming off a year where he was, I want to say Richardson's backup, but kind of not really because they benched Richardson at some points, and Flacco didn't quite look as good as he did in 2023. I mean, he played in one more game in the regular season and had a few more yards, but also, one less touchdown, one fewer interception. But all in all, wasn't too far off, I guess, from where he was in 2023. The exception, though, like I hinted at a second ago, for one of the two veteran winners not starting week 1 is a very rare case of a later drafted rookie stands out. There's really 2 notable examples of this. Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys, who was just awesome from day 1 in Frisco and then ultimately kind of took the job from an injured Tony Romo, but the injury I don't really think played as big of a deal looking back as it might have felt in the moment. That's one example, former 4th-round pick from Mississippi State. The other is Russell Wilson, who went to Seattle after the Seahawks signed Matt Flynn, the Green Bay Packers backup to Aaron Rodgers, to a nice contract, and Russell Wilson just won the job outright. And then I was curious, because I've seen these examples tossed out a bunch, are there any more examples of quarterbacks taken rounds 3 through 7, Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd, Shedeur in the 5th, who started week 1 as a rookie? And since 2000, here are the 4. These 2, like we talked about, Kyle Orton for the Bears back in 2005. That was the year before they went to the Super Bowl. Rex Grossman broke his ankle in a preseason game. And so Orton started a vast majority of that year. So, Romo got injured in the preseason too, but even Romo came healthy, and then he continued to sit. I don't think this is really what we're picturing, an injury to a clear-cut starter, right? And then Chris Weinke, right? Is I saying that right? Florida State guy. I have no idea why he started. He was bad. He did throw a boatload of passes that year to set a rookie pass attempt record. He was benched the next year, I think, for Jake Delhomme. And I don't know. I tried to do some research. Believe it or not, it's difficult to bring up Carolina Panthers news and rumors from 2001. So, but here are the 4 examples. It's a very short list. So, Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are trying to beat the odds. It's for guys selected rounds 3 or later to start week 1. History is not on their side. I'm not going to make that bold of a claim when there's only 4 examples in the last 25 years for what we're talking about happening in Cleveland, and either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders starting. I don't hate the take of one of those 2 guys winning the job, since the competition is not that fierce in 40-year-old Joe Flacco and 3 teams in 4 seasons Kenny Pickett, but it's not one that I'm going to make. If you want to make that claim or make that take, good for you. You got bigger balls than I do. But if I'm being honest, I won't believe in that. So with that being said, let's say Joe Flacco wins the starting job. Does Kenny Pickett now become available for a trade? That's something that Schefter talked about. And it's something that we touched on like 2 weeks ago, but there's been so much just news out there. I haven't really had enough time to dive into this possibility of Flacco or Pickett getting dealt. And there's really one team that comes to mind, and it's the team that you're thinking about right now as well. The New Orleans Saints, looking for a quarterback. With Derek Carr announcing his retirement, you've got Tyler Shuck, who I think is the oldest in the room, but also the youngest in terms of experience. He's 25, turning 26 in September. Spencer Rattler goes into his second season. Jake Hayner's going into his third, maybe fourth season. It is the worst quarterback room by a mile in the National Football League. I'm not a Tyler Shuck believer. You had one season of A, production, and B, health in his entire 6-7 years in college. Last year at Louisville, I'm just not interested in Shuck being perceived as the day one starting quarterback before you even get to training camp. Rattler blows, and Hayner swallows. Like, that's the combo for him and Rattler. So it's an awful quarterback room in New Orleans. Now, as for Kellen Moore in his first season with them and what he wants to do, I think if he did not have a lot of faith in this quarterback room, which, Kellen, if you're watching, you shouldn't, you would want to make a trade right now. You'd want to get that quarterback in as soon as possible to start the process of him learning your offense and getting familiar with the receivers and the running backs versus giving those three quarterbacks all of OTAs, minicamp, and a week or two of the preseason to then come to the conclusion that I've already reached, which is none of those guys are ready to be starters in the NFL. Then you trade for Kenny Pickett, and he's playing catch-up because it's August 20th, and week 1 is in 15 days. That's not a recipe for success for Pickett. I don't think the Browns, though, are really interested in trading Flacco or Pickett away right now because neither one's lost the quarterback battle yet. They need a loser first. They haven't had the competition. They are trading away a horse at the Kentucky Derby before they get in the stall. The only way you're going to pry one of those two quarterbacks away is if you give the Browns an offer they can't refuse. Because the Browns like to view their players as like chips, not like people, which sounds a bit degrading, but they like to view them as assets and currency. And they used a fifth and Dorian Thompson-Robinson on Pickett. So if you come back with a third or a fourth, they'll view that entire exchange as a win. We turned Dorian Thompson-Robinson into a fourth-round draft pick. Pretty good deal. But I don't think New Orleans right now wants to give up a fourth-round pick for Kenny Pickett. What has he done from the time he got traded for a player and a fifth to increase his value to a fourth? I don't envy the position New Orleans is in. I guess that's the overarching takeaway from this entire conversation. Before we sign off, few things here. One, we're going to have a live show, like I said, our final live Browns report with yours truly, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. So come back tomorrow or potentially today by the time you're watching this. And if you want to get a Shedeur Sanders jersey, Mason Graham jersey, they might have Dillon Gabriel jerseys too, or a Quinshon Judkins jersey. I know they have a Carson Schlesinger jersey. Go to chatsports.com/CLE rookies. I put that link in the comments and description of today's episode. Let's pick a card to wrap it all up. Reed, which card are you thinking? Two of hearts? Two of clubs. Reed goes from two of hearts to two of clubs. I'll go with two of diamonds. If it's two of spades, suicide watch. No. Ace of hearts. Ace of hearts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see everyone later.